You're listening to the Farlight Relay, broadcasting tonight from somewhere outside Morrow Station. Traffic slow tonight, real slow. Probably means weather's backing up the outer lanes again. And if you're out there hauling freight through Quiet Reach, try not to fall asleep in the long burns. And if you have already, well, you're probably not hearing this part anyway. Tonight I've been thinking about Calder's tap. God, there used to be a smell in that place. And not bad either. Not station mold or coolant leaks or overheated wiring. Just warm air. Old fryer grease, beer foam, damp jackets drying near the heaters after long crossings. You'd walk in from the freight corridors and immediately know people had been living in there a while. I think that's what made it different. Most station bars try too hard. Too bright, too loud. Music turned up high enough nobody notices how tired they are. Calder hated places like that. At least that's what people used to say. Supposedly, Calder spent almost 30 years running military convoy routes before he opened the tap. Logistics mostly. The unglamorous kind of work. Fuel, medical transfers, repair crews. The sort of thing nobody remembers until it stops arriving. And then, one day the contracts ended. And he retired tomorrow like half the old military lifers eventually did. The only problem was, he didn't know what to do with himself after. Story goes he spent maybe a year drifting between bars around the station, sitting alone, drinking too much, watching people come and go. And apparently, one night he got irritated because some casino place in Mid-Deck 7 kept trying to push customers out faster to turn tables over. Calder told the owner, tired workers deserve somewhere to sit without being treated like cargo. Owner just laughed at him. A few months later, Calder opened the tap. Tiny little place then. Half the lights barely worked. Tables looked salvaged off freight carriers. Air recycler rattled loud enough to hear from the corridor. But people stayed. That was the thing. People stayed. Relay operators after isolation runs, freight crews waiting on delayed clearances, dock hands too tired to make it back to quarters. Nobody got rushed out. I remember hearing Calder used to walk around refilling drinks without asking sometimes, because he already knew who'd had a bad crossing just by the way they sat down. And there was always noise in there. Not loud noise, human noise. Card games, arguments about route conditions, some old mechanic explaining the same story for 20 years straight, somebody laughing too hard 3 tables over. For a while there, Calder's tap almost felt like the center of Morrow. Not officially. Nothing important ever happens in places like that officially. But if you wanted to know what the outer lanes actually felt like, you went to Calder's. You'd see Quiet Reach crews staring at their drinks like they just returned from another planet. Survey workers sleeping in booths before next cycle departures. People meeting each other again after months apart like no time had passed at all. And every once in a while, you'd catch somebody sitting alone near the back wall, listening to everybody else talk, like it was keeping them alive somehow. Funny thing is, I went back there a few years ago, hadn't been through Morrow in a while, and the place was still there mostly. Sign outside looked newer, too new. Lights brighter than I remembered. I guess some corporate distributor had bought partial supply rights, apparently. They'd added polished screens behind the bar, updated the booths, cleaned everything up. Drinks came faster, food came faster. Nobody stayed very long. The whole place felt like it was preparing for people to leave before they'd even sat down. I remember sitting there with a glass in my hand thinking, Maybe places don't disappear all at once either. Maybe they just slowly stop remembering what they were for. Anyway, if Calder's still alive somewhere, I hope nobody's rushing him out of his seat.